Today, I'm thrilled to welcome Rukus as our guest on this episode of the CIO Podcast. As Chief Digital Officer at AvalonBay Communities, Rukus leads digital transformation initiatives for AvalonBay to revolutionize operations, drive innovation, enhance customer experience, and unlock new revenue streams. As transformative leader across 6 industries, spanning from government, aerospace, retail, technology, financial services, and real estate, Rukus has spent 25 years pioneering digital solutions. He co-leads AvalonBay's Innovation Council, coordinating VC and direct investments, while consistently transforming technology departments into critical business partners that successfully bring products and concepts to market. Rukus, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So Rukus, throughout your career spanning multiple industries, you've navigated the evolving landscape of digital transformation. I'm curious about your leadership approach and the journey that brought you here. What inspired you to initially pursue a career in technology, and how would you describe your leadership style? Tell us your story.
So I'd actually like to think my leadership style has evolved over the years, but to answer that question first, I think I would refer to my leadership style as a transformative, style, transformation-focused management style and leadership style. But if we go back to like how it all began, like I fundamentally just loved computers, and it really goes back to video gaming. When I was a kid growing up, playing computer games, my favorite game back in the day was Prince of Persia. I don't know if you played that, but that was on on disc. But I loved playing video games, and from doing that, I realized there was this space called computer science and programming, and it was, I think, I was in the 8th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade at the time. Got exposed to a computer club, and I learned how to actually program in BASIC, and started writing, learned how to define go-to statements, and was really fascinated by the ability to essentially control how a computer operated and responded, and really that was where it all sort of started. I remember looking at computer games, and at the bottom of the games back in the day, they would have phone numbers, at the end of the game, essentially sourcing or soliciting for funding, for sort of scaling their products. And my friends would make fun of me that if I picked a career in computer science or technology, I would be really begging for funding or be broke. And it's kind of fascinating, sort of thinking about the evolution of technology and how pivotal it's and prevalent it is in society to today. But really at the age of, I think as early as the 10th grade, I really made a decision, and it's not usual for most, but in the 10th grade, I realized that I wanted to do computer science. So went to college, did computer science, left college. I was burnt out, tired, and just wanted to work and get in industry. Fortunate enough to graduate, close to the sort of .com era. So anybody with a pulse essentially got an opportunity to get a job in the tech space, and really that's where it began. I got my first opportunity as an engineer in the government contracting space with a company called BDM. BDM shortly got acquired by TRW. And then, while at TRW, I would say I really honed my craft, really understanding application of technology in business. And from there, transitioned to do some consulting with a company called Bluestone. That was in the early days of sort of middleware software. We had a product called Bluestone Server, which was sort of playing with Apache. I forget the name now. Tomcats. Back in the day. And then built solutions around that server. That company got essentially bought out by HP shortly after I joined them. And HP was really innovative in terms of thinking about sort of the value of the middleware, layer, and essentially decided that the value was less in the middleware layer and more in the services, sort of the professional services around the layer. So they essentially offered the software for free, built capabilities around solutioning around the platform. It eventually went bankrupt. It didn't work. I think they were really ahead of their time in terms of the concept. But transitioned out of there, because the business got shut down, and transitioned to an organization that was really in incubation status in a large organization, where we essentially built a procurement platform for the federal government, or at least that the federal government utilized, and then. I think at that company was really where it was small, and I got the opportunity to do really every aspect of sort of the technology stack, from software development to infrastructure to databases to sort of analytics to business analysis and requirements. And I would say I really honed my craft at that opportunity. I was there for a few years, and I really wanted to do, the organization stopped investing significantly in sort of the technology platform. I wanted to do more, and found an opportunity out of there in the consulting arena. In that opportunity, I got to work with sort of business leaders, defining solutions, building teams, and after a while, my career really hit a crossroads, where I really had to make a decision. I'd done a lot of technology work, building solutions, architecting solutions, and then I was sort of on the cusp of both building, delivering, but also selling. Selling, technology capabilities, selling offerings to clients, but also delivering. And the opportunities that sort of lay ahead of me was really picking a path. Do you want to be, more on the sales side, technology sales side? Or do you want to be on the industry side, on the sort of ownership side? And from there was where I really transitioned from, sort of sales and delivery to more sort of leadership, technology leadership, strategy development, and the opportunities opened up tremendously for me, from that point on, and the rest is history.
That's a compelling journey, Rukus, and to have that clarity at age 10, man, that's awesome. I had no idea what I was doing at age 10. And
There's actually a problem with that because now I put that pressure on my kids.
oh my God. Yeah, they probably already know exactly what they'll be doing 30 years from now. Yep. From the genes they got. You mentioned strategy towards the end, and I want to build upon that. As a CDO, building tech strategy is a big part of your job, right? And I'm interested in how you approach strategic planning. As a chief digital officer, how do you develop and align IT strategy with the broader business objectives? Just walk us through your process for ensuring your tech initiatives directly support your organization's goals.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I love to approach. I'm a problem solver at heart, and I think everything starts with understanding the customer problem. When I joined the organization, we essentially transitioned to a customer-backed perspective, approaching things from a customer-backed perspective. So when I think about technology, I start from a customer-backed perspective. So from a corporate perspective, what are we trying to accomplish? What are the challenges that we have as a business? And then from there, there's alignment on what the challenges are and the problems are. Then we start to think about the ways that we can solve those problems. There are obviously multiple aspects to this. One is, the technology itself. What are the right technologies that you can apply to solve whatever the organizational challenges are? But probably the most important piece is the people, and who are the people that you need to solve these problems. So you talk about structure, you talk about resources, and then I think back in the day we talked people, process, technology. I think the process that deliver the outcomes for the business are the other sort of significant piece. So who are the people you need to solve this problem? What are the processes that we need to sort of reimagine? And then we talk about the technologies that are best to apply. And then, I think everything is undergirded with, once you understand the problem, you think of what the outcomes are that you're trying to get to. Once you're clear on the outcomes, then all these things sort of fall in play, so you can measure to determine whether or not you're successful in sort of your strategic planning and your execution of your strategy. So people, process, technology, but it starts with understanding sort of the problem that you're trying to solve for.
No, that's refreshing to hear because spending time, it sounds like you spend a lot of time understanding the problem and then crafting the solution, and that sometimes is not what we see most of the times, right? People tend to very quickly state the problem and jump into solutioning, which can cause a lot of problems down the road. And it sounds like you spend a lot of time up front and then map it to kind of how you approach it.
Absolutely. I think there's a I forget it is like an 80-20 rule. Like you spend 80% of your time sort of on the problem, and then the solution essentially takes 20% of the time if you spend the right amount of time on the problem.
Exactly, that's the Pareto principle. Yep,
correct.
And building on that strategic approach, with the pace of technology and how it is changing now, how do you ensure you and your organization are focused on the right initiatives? Like, how do you process and prioritize emerging techs, whether it is AI, quantum, data? Like, there's a lot that goes on in our world every day. So
yeah, so this is, and we can use the rubric of the organization that I'm in today, and how we how I work within this framework to address this problem. But like I said, first it starts with are we clear on the problem that we're trying to solve? we've created a structure that allows us to operate in a distributed fashion, but also collaborate to ensure that we are connected on the decisions that we're making, right, to solve our strategic problems. So once you're clear on what the problem is, we identify who's your business owner, who's the stakeholder that's impacted or driving, set outcomes or dealing with the problems that are prevalent. Once we're clear on that, we identify who's sort of in the periphery, needs to be connected with that. Then we have a team that is going to be responsible for problem solving or building out or identifying the solutions that will be brought to bear. And then so that's sort of the structure. We have business owners. I refer to this as sort of a product-oriented approach to sort of solutioning and problem solving. So we have business, owners, stakeholders across the business. We get together to ensure that everyone is on the same page with respect to the problem, and then how we think we can solve the problem, whether it's changing business process or driving automation, to improve, on the specific outcome. And then we go execute, and then we iterate on that. But everything that we tackle has to be connected with our sort of business objectives. Like the problems are connected with our business objectives. And that ensures that we're sort of aligned on, addressing, critical needs for the business, as opposed to going off on and dealing, executing on pet projects that may not be impactful to the organization.
That's great. So what are some of the strategic transformation initiatives that you and your team are working on today?
Yeah, so we are, in our world, we are, fundamentally trying to transform our operating model. So I work for a real estate company. We're in the multifamily space. Anyone who's familiar with sort of renting apartments or, buying a home knows that historically sort of the real estate space has not been the most forward-leaning historically with respect to leveraging technology and automation. And it makes a whole lot of sense when you understand the business. So what we've been trying to do is really transform how we operate historically, which is, you think of every single asset that we own, property that we own, as its own individual business, and you staff for that business, and then fundamentally all your expenses are sort of tied to that business. There's a P&L for that business. The model that we're essentially transitioning to is really thinking about sort of driving centralization, thinking about clustering assets to operate these assets more efficiently, and in doing that, also delivering a better experience to our customers. So a customer, when I joined the organization about 5+ years ago, a customer comes in looking for a specific apartment unit to rent. There's a lot of friction from searching for that unit to eventually touring that unit, to eventually putting an application, and then, moving into that unit. We've had technology, or at least we had technology that, sort of facilitated that, but it was full of friction. So that's on the top end of the funnel. On the back end, where you have associates supporting the journeys and the customer experience, there's a lot of friction as well. There's systems that don't work. There's a lot of manual, mundane work that our associates perform to essentially move the customer through that journey to eventually moving in. So you've got, customers that are not entirely happy with sort of the process to, get through, and then associates that are not entirely happy with, the amount of mundane work that they have to do to get to a specific outcome. So from an operations perspective, we spend a significant amount of money running our portfolio and operating our portfolio. We are fortunate enough to be sort of a owner-operator, and there are models where the owner essentially farms out the operations to a third party to operate their assets. We're fortunate to operate everything that we own, and we only operate everything that we own. So we have full visibility into all these friction points that I just described. Our objective is to create seamless, personalized experiences for our customers. And our customers include both the prospects looking for places to live, residents that are living in our properties, and then our associates that actually support these customers, these external customers. So that's where everything starts from. We're fundamentally trying to change the operating model, create a better experience for our customers, operate more efficiently. And operating more efficiently looks like, rather than individual assets and operating individual assets and staffing to individual assets, we're staffing what we refer to as neighborhoods, which is essentially clusters of assets. So we have a pool of resources supporting, said neighborhood assets, so they can operate more efficiently, cost effectively, and technology is a critical component to actually enabling that. We don't necessarily want every community to have people sort of locked and quarantined in that asset. We want them to be able to rove and support the neighborhood. So that's fundamentally the problem that we're trying to solve for from a digital experience perspective. And we've organized our operations, our technical operations, to be able to understand the pain points and deliver solutions to eliminate that friction, with technology.
No, I love it. So it's always about understanding what the experience of your customer should be, and then designing, your technology solutions to back that up, right?
Correct.
Whether you use AI or not, whether you use this technology or that technology, kind of sounds secondary in nature, because you're always first thinking about the problem and that experience of your customers, and then picking the right, tech.
That's absolutely right. There are a lot of options that you can pick in terms of the specific technology tool that you apply. But if you are not aligned on the problem, or if you don't understand the problem correctly, you could pick the wrong tool and end up, sort of hampering yourself in the long run. And that's why, understanding the problem is the most critical piece. We have smart, talented, technologists to build the right solution, but that's almost, secondary.
Awesome. All right, so we are halfway through, and transformation is rarely a smooth path, right? What were some of the biggest challenges faced during your digital transformation journey? Can you think of like a specific example that tested your leadership approach?
So coming into my current organization, we were really set up, to sort of deliver on technology, was project centric, and we've got a group of incredibly talented, smart, inquisitive leaders here at the company, and they understand the business and are very connected with the operations, the actual execution and operations of the business. And one of the big things that, we essentially, focused on trying to sort of implement was one, empowering sort of teams. So changing the approach to delivering, software and, delivering on solutions. So we had a project-centric approach. A lot of leaders were very integrated with the execution, sort of at a minute level. And once things got delivered, it was hard to iterate on them. It was like you essentially move the team to focus on something else, some other project. And it made a lot of sense because we're a real estate company. We execute on projects. Each property is essentially a project, has a start time and end time, and you eventually fold it into sort of the portfolio, into the stabilized portfolio, and then you move on to the next project. And technology was sort of implemented, in a similar flat fashion. There's a capability we need to enable, or there's some revenue we want to, achieve. So we staff up a team, build that thing. Once it's done, we move on to something else. So the fundamental shift was moving the organization to thinking about the product from a cycle perspective. It's not one and done. When you think about the journey, when you think about all the capabilities required in the journey, and we need to think about iterating and evolving the product experience over time. That requires a different approach. Secondly, you need people to drive that, because there's a lot of details that need to be uncovered to determine where the pain points are and what the roadmap really needs to look like and what metrics we need to capture. So really moving the organization to a different sort of state from a technology perspective and product delivery perspective. It took a little while to sort of get, sort of consensus on this transition. The second piece, which is connected with sort of our broad technology strategy, is we're focused on, we want to build the things that are differentiators for us, and then we'll rent things that are sort of commodity, rent or buy. But fundamentally, we want to be able to own our destiny. And that requires building the things that are differentiators. This industry, for the most part, doesn't do a lot of building. They depend on third parties to build. The differentiator is typically, sort of looked at as the physical asset, and to a large extent that makes sense. But that was a big shift for us as an organization, and required a lot of work, a lot of effort, to show the value of, both defining where the differentiators are, that makes sense for us to sort of spend more time building, as opposed to just renting technology, and sort of relinquishing sort of controls, the reins of driving the roadmap for the products, and empowering a product-led organization to really drive the evolution of the product, the customer journey. And it's been 5 years now, and we've created a brand new organization, a brand new operating model from a technology perspective, and we're seeing some really good results and significant collaboration across the organization.
That's awesome to hear. Kudos on that. And you mentioned results at the end, right? So I want to just pivot to, measuring what matters and what metrics and KPIs you use to measure success, and how do you know whether you're tracking in the right direction and you're being successful?
Yeah, so as we discussed, like the first thing we have to be clear on is the problem. Once you're clear on the problem, what are the outcomes that we're trying to achieve? From that, you derive, sort of the how you're going to measure success, right? Because the outcomes essentially reflect that. So for us, we're trying to create, a seamless experience for our customers, and sort of from an economic standpoint, the two sort of big drivers, from a financial perspective. You want to be able to impact revenue. You want to be able to impact costs. You want to reduce, our operating costs. A lot of the initial work that we focused on is really impacting cost, and then the third is obviously sort of the customer experience, which is, if anything, the most important, component. So NPS is a big component, which is, sort of the customer's, how the customer perceives us, and their willingness to recommend us to other, to their friends and families, and we have, when we, the way we actually measure that, or the way we believe we impact that is both our, technology experiences. We have, at different touch points for each of the journeys that we have, we measure, we run surveys, we get a pulse check of, the customer's sort of response to the experience, the digital experience. And then, from a cost perspective, we understand, where the friction points are. We understand how much time is being spent at different phases of each journey. So we measure that and we track that, and monitor that, periodically to ensure that we are getting the effects, that we expected, and from a and then from a cost perspective, we analyze the cost of operations on a a frequent basis to determine if the outcomes are what we expect. But beyond sort of the big ticket numbers that we track, is customer NPS, friction, customer friction, customer effort score. We think about the ability for our associates to actually execute on sort of serving the customer the most effective way possible. So we're surveying our customers, getting feedback from our associates as well to understand how well we're doing.
Awesome. Love it. Let's shift into another crucial aspect of leadership, which is building high-performing teams. In today's environment, what strategies do you use to attract, retain, and develop, a world-class tech talent?
So, I think I like to believe that I'm a great sales guy. I can sell water to a well, but I think fundamentally it starts with I personally am attracted to opportunities that are interesting and engaging, and I believe the problem space in our area is incredibly interesting and engaging. And with that, it becomes easy to share the story of the problem that we're solving. So it starts with the story. Like, what are we trying to accomplish here? And I believe that's a big factor with attracting talent. I mean, we fundamentally transformed the organization, and a big part of that, a big part of getting the talent that we've gotten, has been the big picture story that we're solving for. But so story is number one. Two is sort of the technologies that we're using and how we're using technology to impact the business. And engineers, technologists love innovation. So a big part of our story is how we're innovating, and the opportunity and the space that we create for smart and engaging and innovative technologists to positively impact the business and develop their skills and in ways that they probably would not get in other forums, in other companies. And then once they're in here, we do a ton to try to retain our talent. I think it's creating the great opportunities for them to work on, creating opportunities for them to sort of stretch and learn about the business, but also sort of connect with other parts of the business and develop other muscles that we believe they need. And I think those things essentially sort of create the strong connection. But fundamentally, if you're not solving interesting problems, it's harder to sort of attract the right talent that you need.
Amen. It's all about storytelling and solving interesting problems. So that brings me to my last question, Rukus. As we wrap up, I'd love to hear your advice for the next generation, of aspiring IT professionals who want to make significant impact in their careers, right? You had this clarity when you're 10 years old, but, for people that may not have it, or they are about to start, they just started and they want to get to, where you are and, become the CIO or the CDO. How can they develop skills and mindset needed to lead in today's fast-paced, technology-driven environment?
First and foremost, learn how to use AI. You get comfortable with ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot. I think because I do believe talent that knows how to leverage those tools will be really the stars of the future. But there are probably three traits that I think are super critical as an aspiring sort of leader. Number one is curiosity. I think you need to be curious. Can't be a know-it-all. You need to, on the surface, get the surface, and then get beneath the surface. Ask questions, try to understand, and explore areas that you're not comfortable with or comfortable in, situations you're not comfortable in. Number two would be agility or adaptability, right? You need to, we're in a fast changing world. Like the pace of technology change in the last 6 months is just tremendous. And it's only going to get faster. So being able to adapt is going to be crucial. And then thirdly is intentional or intentionality. You need to be intentional about where you focus, where you put your energy. I personally have been, fortunate. I was fortunate to know where I wanted to be and what I wanted to focus really early on in my career. But if I think about my career, almost every move that I've made, I've been very intentional about the decision, why I'm making that move, what I'm trying to get for, even if it was a lateral or backward move, there was a rationale behind it. There were things I was trying to learn. There were areas I was trying to expose myself to. There were people I wanted to be connected with. There were people I wanted to learn from. And, you know, that has served me well in terms of my career. So I think curiosity, adaptability, and intentionality are three things that I think are critical. And you know, applying all these three things and leveraging ChatGPT or Gemini or AI in general can set you up for success.
That's brilliant, Rukus. Listen, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insights. Thank you to all our listeners. We hope you enjoyed today's episode with Rukus. If you found value in this conversation, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who might benefit from this conversation. We've got more insightful episodes lined up, so stay tuned. Until next time, keep pushing the boundaries and leading the way. Cheers.
Thank you.